Hello and welcome to the Live Snap Love podcast and YouTube channel, the place to be for tips, tricks and inspiration for family, portrait and lifestyle photographers. Now, I know that all of us want to grow our photography skills, but time can be at a bit of a premium, which is why in this week's episode, I'm sharing with you 10 different things that you can do just this weekend in order to improve your photography skills. So all of these things are totally doable in one weekend. They're not going to require any new gear or watching a 3-hour tutorial, just something that you can do to move your photography forward and try something new. Now, I know we're all at different stages in our photography journey. So if you are new, don't worry, there's things here for you. If you're a bit more advanced, there's things for you as well. But for most of them, it doesn't matter if you're a beginner or advanced, you just choose an easier way of doing it or a harder way of doing it. So there really is something for everyone. Now, once you watch the video, let me know in the comments which one you are going to do. I would love to hear from you and see if any of these resonated with you. So for now, let's go ahead and let's dive into these 10 things that you can do this weekend to improve your photos. So one of the first things you can do, and probably one of the best things that you can do for your photography full stop, is to become an observer of light. There is lots to learn about light. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. But you can make a start this weekend by just observing the light around you. Have a look at the windows in your home. Pick one room in your home, for example, and just see how the light falls into that room. And then observe how the light changes as the sun moves around in the sky. The day gets later, you go back into that same room, you're going to have different light again. And then if you go in the evening when it's very, very low light, you're going to have different light again. So start observing the light around you. And then you can start to use different types of light as well. So you can start with indoor light, but start using light, for example, first thing in the morning when you get that beautiful kind of hazy backlight. You could use full sun when the sun is much higher in the sky and you get those hard shadows on the ground. How could you play with that? Another great way of using light is to look out for little patches of light. Hard light creates this amazing patches of light that you can use. Observe that. Can you see anywhere like that, for example, in any of the rooms in your house? And of course, golden hour in the evening is loved by everyone. Go out for a walk at that time of night and notice how the light is much more golden and warm and how it's much softer and you get longer shadows. Just starting to observe the light doesn't even have to do anything with it. It's going to start to make you a better photographer. Now, I do want to make this whole 10 things actionable. So this is a little task I'm going to give you for this weekend if you choose to do this one. And that is to try working with a light that you've never worked with before. If you've only ever used flat, even light, if you're the type of person who loves a cloudy day because the light's not too challenging, then I would urge you to maybe move your subjects so that they have some shadowing on them. So the light's coming from the side rather than from the front. If you're kind of okay with indoor light, you get a bit antsy going outside, go outside on a sunny day at different times and just start experimenting with the light. Honestly, that's one of the best things you can do for your photography is just to start learning about light. As I say, there is a lot to learn, but you can start this weekend just by choosing one type of light or choosing to light your subject in one different way than you've done before. It's all about layering on those skills. Okay, the second way you can improve your photography this weekend is to start to pre-visualize your image. Now, depending on the type of photography you do, you might not often do this. For example, I used to love, and I still do, family documentary photography. And really it's about more reacting to situations rather than pre-visualizing something. But what I have found is the more that I try and pre-visualize an image, the better my candid images get. So just to give you a couple of examples of when I've done this, I have taken an image of my son. And what I had in my head, he would be holding this lantern. And inside the lantern, I was going to put fairy lights. And that way I would get the room in darkness and he would just be lit by this lantern of light. Now, that's not an image that I would have gotten if I had just been doing documentary photography. I really had to plan that out. I had to plan the time of day to make sure it was dark enough. I had to fill a lantern with the string of lights, and I had to then coerce my son into the room, and he's kind of picking that up and playing with that. And of course, I get an image that I absolutely love from doing that sort of visualization before actually then going and implementing it. I've also done this where I've looked at magazines, for example, and I've seen how they have an image for food. One of the images that I created, it's just tomatoes in a bowl, was actually kind of inspired from a cookbook. So I could visualize it, the colors there, the background I was going to put it on before I did it. And then I set out to take that image. And sometimes it's a location that will inspire you. You might see somewhere and you think, I'm going to take a photo there. And you can start to visualize what kind of clothing is going to look good for my subject to wear in that area. What time of day is going to look good? The more you can pre-visualize a shot, first of all, the more you can plan for it. So whether that be things like composition or light or clothing, the more you can plan for that, obviously, the better the result is going to be. But pre-visualizing and then putting that into action is also going to help you those times when you can't put it into action. It's just helping build up your brain in a way that it can pre-visualize what your image is going to look like. The more clues you can give your brain, the easier it's going to be to start getting images that you love. So do this weekend. Again, let's make this very actionable. So if you want to take this one, you can start to dream up an ideal image or even a full session. Just write it down or start sketching it out. And if it is something that you can make a plan to do, for example, it's maybe you want to photograph your own family, then sketch it out. Where are you going to photograph? What clothes are you going to be wearing? What composition roles can you use? What kind of light? Really start thinking about all of those elements and start making a plan. And I'll give you extra brownie points if you go out there and shoot it this weekend as well. But plan it this weekend and then shoot it next weekend. There you go. I've just done 2 weekends in a row for you. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Now, the next one that you can do, which again, completely free, and something you can do with the existing gear that you have, is just use different compositions. So what we'll often find is that when we are newer to photography, we tend to stick to the same compositions. Now, what often happens is people learn something like the rule of thirds, for example, and then they compose all of their images in that way. And that can lead to just boring kind of images, but also you getting bored. So you can actually start to play with different compositions. And this is going to depend where you are in your photography journey. Now, if you are not thinking about photography at all or composition at all thus far and you're brand new to photography, then the rule of thirds is a fantastic place to start. So ignore what I just said. It's great for starting out with. It's going to make your images more interesting and compelling and balanced and dynamic. But if you've been using that for a while, then it's time to maybe move on from that. So you could try framing your subjects in different ways, framing them with lights, with doorways, with archways, for example. If you are always using the rule of thirds, go back to using centered compositions, but with intention. Why are you using that centered composition? What is that giving to your image that you're not getting with the rule of thirds? Centered compositions work really well, as long as they are done with thought. Now, even just changing the angle that you shoot from. For example, getting down on your tummy and taking a photo from there, or getting above your subject and shooting down. So you can use more advanced compositions, or you can just decide to shoot from a different angle. And if you really want to take this to the next level, start using more advanced compositions like golden compositions, Fibonacci sequence, looking at color psychology. All of these things can be great things to play with. So again, let's make this really actionable. Just pick a composition tool and work on introducing it to your images this weekend. If you're a beginner, you can start there with the rule of thirds. If you are more advanced, you can choose something, as I say, like the golden compositions. Just pick one, get out there and purposely create an image using that composition tool. Okay, moving on now to another thing that you can do this weekend. Now, obviously, you probably can't take a full photography course or even a workshop, although I would argue that you can take many of my workshops in just a weekend. However, what you can do is find one that you would like to take. Now, workshops and courses are one of the best ways to improve your photography skills, and they're definitely the best way to improve them quickly. So what you can do here is simply just go and find out what it is that you are missing right now in your photography skill set. What is holding you back? So spend the weekend figuring out what the next step in your photography journey should be. Again, this is going to be different for everyone. If you are new to photography, then it might just be as simple as, for example, we've got a 5-day beginners bootcamp. Now, I say it's 5 days. It's 5 lessons you can do over 5 days, but you can definitely do this over a weekend. You can do the entire thing in a day, in a couple of days, absolutely, without a doubt. So you can go and do something like that. If you're a bit more advanced, you might find yourself that, well, actually, I don't know how to use my speedlight confidently. Go and find a little course on Speedlight. Again, we've got one, Speedlight Simplified. You might find that your locations are getting a bit boring or you just need some inspiration. Again, we've got the location scouting workshop. Or you might go, well, actually, do you know, Audrey, you were talking a lot about light there and composition. And you know what? I don't do a lot with light. I use the same light or I use the same compositions. Go and find a longer course that, again, is going to move you forward in your photography journey. And yes, absolutely, we have courses on advanced light and advanced composition as well. So again, making this actionable, just spend this weekend figuring out what is missing from your photography skill set and what you need to learn next in your photography journey. Now, this is going to be an excellent time for me to let you know that the doors to the All Access Pass are opening again in early September. Now, if you're not sure what the All Access Pass is, this is my complete end-to-end entire ecosystem of photography training that will take you from beginner to advanced photographer and cover all of the aspects that you need to learn in photography. So that's shooting in manual mode in your camera settings, basic and beginner lighting, and then more advanced lighting. Again, simple composition strategies, and then more advanced composition strategies. Editing in Lightroom Classic, and then more creative editing and editing in Photoshop as well. We literally cover everything start to finish that you need to know in your photography journey. We've got lots of little extras like the location scouting guide, that Speedlight Simplified course that I mentioned as well. Absolutely everything is here in this All Access Pass. And as I say, we're opening the doors in September. Now, you can get your name on the wait list for that. And the reason you're going to want to do that is because we have some legitimately limited amount bonuses that are going to be available for the first people who register. So if you get your name on the wait list, you are going to get access a day early, or we're going to open the doors for you a day early, and you'll get first dibs on these limited access bonuses. So you can go and get your name on the waitlist for that at livesnaplove.com/pass. That is livesnaplove.com/pass. And I will leave a link to this in the description around where you're either watching this video or listening to the podcast. Okay, let's move on now to the next thing you can do this weekend, again, completely free, and that is to try out a new editing technique or learn a new editing technique. Again, we can sometimes get a little bit stale in our editing, or we can just sometimes get, so involved in just saying, we just want to have a clean image, whereas actually editing is another way that you can be really creative and enhance your images and take them to the next level and just really get things looking exactly the way that you want them to. Now, next week, I am going to be releasing a video here on YouTube, and I'll release it on the podcast as well. But it is one that you probably want to watch instead, because I am going to be giving you a deep dive behind the scenes of one image. I am going to go into the light that was used, the location, the camera settings, the composition, We're going to look at what editing I did in Lightroom Classic and the editing that I did in Photoshop. So that's going to give you some ideas as well. But here is what I do when I feel like I'm stuck in an editing rut and I just really need to start breaking free and trying something new. So again, this is what you can do this weekend to make it actionable for you. Is take some images into your favorite editing program and then try to edit the photo or the same photo in 3 different ways. Now you can do this with one image or a bunch of images. It's up to you. But let's just start with one image. Take that one photo and edit that in entirely 3 different ways. Just as an example, you could do this as a clean edit, then a creative color edit, and then you could do a black and white edit. This is such a great way to practice your photography skills and try out a range of different techniques on your images. Okay, let's move away now to the next one. And this one is definitely for those of you who are newer to photography. And that is to move away from the auto or semi-automatic modes of shooting on your camera. So if you're brand new to photography and you're currently shooting on auto mode, then I'd love it if you took your first step away from auto and started using some of the semi-automatic modes like aperture priority mode or shutter priority mode. If you want my advice, I would start just using aperture priority mode. And what's going to happen there is your camera is going to choose the aperture. Sorry, you're going to choose the aperture and your camera is going to choose the shutter speed and the ISO for you. And this is going to allow you to start to take gradual control over your images. Remember, the more control you have, the better images you are going to get. And if you are already shooting in one of the semi-automatic modes, for example, aperture mode, then go and start making that step into manual mode. Now, there is a learning curve with manual, without a doubt, but the sooner you make that change, as I say, the more control, the more you tell your camera what you want the scene to look like and where you want it to expose for and what kind of artistic exposure you want for that scene, the better your images are going to be. So again, let's do this for this weekend, making it actionable. If you're shooting in auto, move on to aperture priority mode. That's A if you're on Nikon or Sony or pretty much anyone else, AV if you're on Canon. And if you're currently shooting in aperture priority mode, go and make that step to shooting in manual. I'm going to link to some resources for you in the show notes for this episode or in the description for the YouTube channel. So you can check those out as well. Let's move on now, and this is another quickie for beginners, and that is to change to shooting in the RAW file format if you aren't already. Now, just to make you quickly aware of what that is, so the image is always captured in the RAW file format on your camera. When you shoot in JPEG, what it's doing is it's taking that RAW image, it is applying some editing to it in camera, and then it's spitting out the JPEG file for you to share. What we really want to do, again, we always want to be moving our photography forward. We want to start editing our images ourselves. And the best thing to do for that is to shoot in the RAW file format. It's going to give you so much more latitude in editing your photos. So you can go onto your camera, go into the file formats, and you will find one there for shooting in RAW. Now, you need to have a RAW file processor. You can get free ones, but something like Lightroom Classic, Photoshop are all going to let you edit RAW files. If you're not sure yet and you're a little bit hesitant, you can actually choose a setting that is RAW plus JPEG. That's going to shoot in RAW and it's going to give you a JPEG file. So you've got that safety net if you're in any way unsure. But again, here's our action item for this particular one. Make the switch to shooting in RAW this weekend if you're currently shooting in JPEG, or if you're a little bit hesitant, make that switch to RAW plus JPEG and then you'll end up with both and then start editing those RAW files as well. It's going to make a difference to your photos. I will tell you that there's been many points in my photography journey where I've noticed differences. One was after I sort of mastered manual mode. Another was when I started shooting in RAW and editing my own photos. Because what it's doing in camera is kind of like auto for editing. It was getting really crunchy, really contrasty. Absolutely the best thing for me was was without a doubt learning to edit my own photos. And this is going to be the first step, is making that switch to RAW. It's going to give you so much more leeway. And if you are a beginner, it's so much better for if you get your white balance wrong, your exposure wrong, RAW is going to give you so much more latitude for fixing those in-camera mistakes. Okay, the next one is finding a great location. Now, we can get really bored photographing in the same places at the same time. And we get bored, but our eyes get bored. Because once we are used to a certain place, our brain sort of automatically stops even worrying about it. It just filters everything out. It's seen it all before. It doesn't need to worry about it. So in order to stop it from being bombarded with all this new information all of the time, it just tunes things out. And you'll have experienced this when you drive to a store and you'll just not even realize how you got there half the time. Not the safest thing in the world, but it happens. And it's because we just tune things out. So finding a new location can help open up your eyes. You'll start seeing things. You'll start seeing the colors, the lines, the shapes, everything there that you can use. It can start brimming with possibilities. So go and start finding locations that you can shoot in, and that is going to give you this new set of sort of creative eyes for your images. Again, making this actionable, I'm pretty much sure you can guess what you're going to have to do with this one. That's going to take some time to search out a new great location. Now, this can be for any type of photos, your portrait photos, your candid photos. It's maybe a new beach that you can take your kids to, or a new park. It could be a new location for your portrait photos. If you're into more landscapes or flowers, where could you go that's got something new for you to do there? So really start to find a new great location. Now, we do have a little workshop that helps with this, a location scouting playbook. You can absolutely check that out as well if you are interested. Okay, moving on now to the next way that we can improve our photos this weekend. And again, just like the others, it is absolutely free. Now, I have got on the screen here, if you're watching on YouTube, new lens or one focal length. Now, what I mean by that is if you always shoot with one lens, for example, you always shoot with your 35mm, try putting on a different lens for the weekend and only using that lens. If you have just one zoom lens, for example, just try sticking at one focal length, one that you maybe don't often use. For example, if you are using a 24-70 lens, why not pop the lens on at 24mm and just stay there for the entire weekend and see what you can come up with. So some things that I've done here, for example, is using a longer length lens indoors. So I often use my 35, which is a wider angle lens indoors. Sometimes putting on that telephoto length is giving you that lovely kind of background blur and foreground blur when you're indoors. So it can make for really lovely images indoors, but it's something I don't often use. So just forcing myself to use a different lens. Also for flowers, I will often shoot a macro of a flower, getting into the details. Sometimes it can be really nice to shoot with a wider angle lens and take in the whole bouquet. How can we make that interesting when we're not just zooming down into that little details? And you can also use an entirely different fun lens. The lens I put on my camera when I'm feeling a bit bored is I go and put on the Lens Baby. I use a Sol 45. I do actually have a tutorial all about using that. Again, I'll link to that in the show notes. And finally, you can use a lens for a different purpose. So for example, I have a macro lens, obviously for macro photos, but it also makes a wonderful portrait lens. So try using a lens for something, as I say, other than what you normally use it for. Maybe start using a wide angle for some portraits. How much fun and quirky portraits you might be able to get with that. Lots of things that you can do here. Again, making this actionable, you can take off your favorite lens, the ones that you have on the camera all the time, and put something else on your camera for a bit. Or if you've only got the one lens, I'm going to guess that it's probably a zoom lens, in which case tape it down at one focal length. Don't let yourself move them there for the weekend and see what you can come up with. It's a great way for experimenting, but it also really helps you to get to know your focal lengths. And again, knowing your tools is so important as a photographer. So really getting to grips with shooting with different lenses in different ways, again, it's going to help you. And the next one, and I'm pretty sure this is our last one, I actually completely lost count of where I am. Absolutely no idea, but I'm pretty sure this is the last one. And that is to start a personal project. Now, what do we mean by a personal project? So a personal project is just anything that you shoot that is not for the purpose that you normally do. So for example, if you are in business and you're shooting portraits all day, a personal project is something that you're just doing for yourself. If you're the key documenter of your family, and they're maybe getting a bit fed up with you taking their photo all day, you can go and try something different. And let me give you some examples of what you can do with this that are really easy. And again, you can start this weekend with no extra funds, no long tutorials. The ones I've done is I started photographing food, not in a, magazine worthy food, sort of layouts, but more just if I was washing strawberries in the sink and I liked the look of, I would pick up my camera and take a photo of it. Or if I was rinsing spinach in a bowl and I would notice that colour combo going on between my colander, which was blue, and the green of the leaf, again, I'm taking a photo of it. And sometimes I would deliberately set something up where, I'm beating eggs for making an omelette, and I'd make sure that I had that on a blue background to get that complementary colour. So I used food, something that obviously, if you're cooking like me, you cook most days, then there's something for you to photograph every day. And it does get you thinking about, again, light, composition, settings, and so on. And you can get some interesting images. Another one that I did for quite some time was photographing feet. Now, that sounds a bit fetishy. It wasn't like that. It was more like, we would be in a beach and my son would be there wearing a pair of welly boots. I would lie down on my tummy and take a photograph of that. Or if we were at the beach on a summer's day, again, I would get down low and start photographing down on his feet, or just basically forcing myself to get down and shoot from a lower angle. Or sometimes, again, just getting down, the sun would be coming behind, and maybe get a bit of a sun flare, but I'd be down shooting the feet. And I did it for a while as well, where I would just take the camera and look down and point down at my own feet, whatever I was doing and wherever I was as well. So I did this in lots of different ways. Now, some of my favourite images have ended up being of the ones I've taken of feet. So it sounds like a strange one, but it was actually quite an interesting one to do. And I still kind of do it today, to be honest. But I know lots of people who've done feet ones. I'm not new in that, and it's not a fetish. It is just a different way of seeing the world. So I'm sure you can come up with your own though. So again, making this actionable, think of something that you can do as a little mini personal project. You could just make it just weekend only. You could do it for the rest of the year. You could be something that you're just going to do for a few months and you'll see when you get bored. There's loads of different things you can do. So really, the world is your oyster here. It's just limited to your imagination and nothing else. So yay, I was right. That was the last one. Now, before I sign off for today, just a quick reminder that the All Access Pass is opening in September, early doors. So make sure you get your name on the waitlist for that, and you'll be first in line. You'll get first dibs on that early bonuses, because you'll get doors open a day earlier than everybody else. So just go to livesnaplove.com/pass to get your name on the waitlist. So that's it for this week's video. I really hope that you enjoyed it and I have inspired you to go and try something this weekend that will move your photography forward. Please do let me know in the comments, if you're watching on YouTube, which one of these you are going to do. I'd really love to hear from you. And of course, you can share your photos on Instagram. Just tag me at LiveSnapLove so I can see them. And if you're listening on the podcast, fortunately, you cannot leave a comment there, but you can come and find me on Instagram, on Facebook, and get in touch. Show me your photos. I always love to hear from you. Okay, that's it from me today. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you again, same time, same place next week. Bye for now.